Cool. So it feels like a while since I last done a Zoom. It's on a weekly basis, but it feels like because we didn't record last week's, it feels like I'm a little bit behind. Because not every week will be recorded, but I feel like this is a message that y'all need to hear. So, if you're watching this on YouTube, watching it back on YouTube, then obviously make sure while you're there you subscribe to the channel. Catch up what I was getting up to in Greece. And then also, if you're listening on Spotify, then make sure you follow the podcast and you check out some of the other episodes. The reason we do this is to help use grow, develop. I always get questions about things. So this is just an opportunity as a group to be able to come together, participate, chuck questions as you have them, and then kind of be efficient with things rather than always me individually coaching and talking to people about the same stuff. I can send one broad message to everyone, because believe it or not, we're not so different. We are a group of very similar people. We might have different jobs, we might have different like living situations, we might have different families, but at the end of the day, like we all struggle with nutrition. I struggle with nutrition as well. We struggle with accountability. When we don't want to do things, then we need to kick up the arse. When maybe our training, maybe there's particular exercises we don't like, but we know that it's good for us. We all go through similar processes and similar things. So to act as a community is always going to be strong. And those who engage with community, and get involved and aren't afraid to do stuff, as Monet said, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Um, and yeah, sometimes we need to get out of our comfort zone and do new things. So as a community and as a group, what we're going to talk about today, or something that I think will kind of benefit everyone, and I found myself talking about it a lot more recently, is an 80/20 rule. So I didn't do any prior research, so I'm just going to talk about like just off the top of my head. So I first discovered 80/20 as like a sales manager when I used to work in retail, and it was all about your 80/20. So 80% of your um 80% of your income, or 80% of kind of like your sales would come from 20% of the product. So when we talk about that, like you talk about like your best sellers and stuff. So the 80/20 rule is like really kind of drilled in on me, but it's where you could put that into other parts of life as well. So using that same concept of 80/20, so let's just say 20% or 80% of the sales came from 20% of the product or the best sellers. 80% of our results come from 20% of the work that we don't see or don't think we do. There's always an 80/20 rule. So if, we might think that 80% of progress comes from training, but it actually comes from the 20% of nutrition, which is actually feels like a smaller part of it. Like it always feels like we're doing more with training, and it feels like we're spending a lot of time when actually it's just the 20% of nutrition, the small little changes that will give us the majority of the results. So I think it's about being efficient with what we focus our time on, because then you have to think about the flip side. Because it was like, okay, cool. So like as a sales manager or someone who's trying to focus on sales and driving customers, what you would do is you'd think about all of the other products in the store that were only then giving you 20% of the income, but it took up so much more proportion and time to look after it, but it wasn't giving us the sales back. So again, it's the same concept. And sometimes it's nice to be able to put that into perspective of just other things rather than always talking about the gym as well. Because then it's like, okay, cool. So what do I really need to focus my energy and my time on for me to get the majority of the results? Because what I don't want to be doing is in these short hours and these short days where there's less light and I'm demotivated, that I'm spending all my time focusing on something and getting little in return. So what does that look like in terms of fitness? So in terms of fitness, what we talk about is, just making sure that we're getting our basics right. So what are some non-negotiables in terms of fitness and health and well-being that we need to make sure that we do to at least maintain or see results? So some of those things that always bring to mind is things like, getting your steps up. So sometimes, like we all hear about the 10,000 steps a day and whatever. If that's not achievable for you, that's fine. All you need to focus on is what is my next step or what is my achievable. So if I'm someone who does 2,000 steps a day, then how do I get to my 5,000 steps? Because small little changes like that, and again, like 5,000 steps is probably about half an hour to 40 minutes of walking a day. It wouldn't be a lot of an increase. So all you need to do is just find half an hour of your day to be able to spend just walking. And honestly, like on a bigger scale, that's going to bring so much to the table when it comes to results. How else can we efficiently see progress without spending loads and loads of time in the gym or doing the wrong things? Again, like another really important thing is our food and our nutrition. So how can I change small little things to see majority of the results? So I always say about smart food swaps. So rather than having 20% beef, you have the 5% beef. Rather than having, you know, semi-skimmed milk or, even coconut, even like oat milk, almond milk are quite high in calories. So what's the alternative or what's the smart swap? Things like coconut milk, for example. You know, in terms of calories, you're talking about semi-skimmed milk, maybe 100 grams, or 100 calories, whereas coconut, we're talking about like 30. So it's like, how can we make little changes for the most results? And it's small little things like that, which compound and build up. And it's something that a few years ago when I was going through like my larger weight loss journey, that I was like, actually, do you know what? I'm feeling pretty lazy. Like, what's the smartest way for me to do this? And those food swaps were the best way for me to do it. Rather than having dairy butter, I would find a low fat spread butter. So I was still getting the satisfaction of having the spreads, but it would be less calories. So how can I swap things out? And I wouldn't even think about it. I wouldn't even know about it. What difference did that make to my routine? I just picked up a different product. I was still spreading stuff. I was still eating the same, but I was just making small little changes, which then ended up making big results. And I think that's the key thing going forward, and especially heading up to Christmas, is how can I do simple little hacks, 20% changes, small little changes to give me 80% more results. So that's nutrition. I think as a baseline, training, half an hour of walking. And then if we're talking about, workouts, maybe we're limited on time. How do we become more time efficient or time effective? Doing things like supersets or pairing muscle groups together. Yeah, you've all got workouts that you follow and allocated workouts. But if you feel like you're spending too much time in the gym, then just message me and be like, Sean, I think my workouts are a little bit too long. Spending an hour in the gym. Is there a way that we can shorten it? I'll change your workout. It's cool. Like, there's ways that we can do these types of things, and just again, we don't want to. Again, what we say is if you're spending 1 hour at a gym 3 days a week, that's only 2% of our week. So then for that to overcompensate or take up so much of our, mental capacity, it's just unrealistic. Like it shouldn't be taking up, we shouldn't be stressing or we shouldn't be overcompensating for something that should be so simple. And I think that's where a lot of people drop off or a lot of people struggle. It's just realizing that this doesn't have to be difficult. And I think that's something that I try and say a lot as well. We just have to focus on the basics, doing 20% small little changes for 80% of the results. So the 80-20% rule has always been a favorite of mine. And then just working smarter, not harder. So again, there are some things that I've been saying recently, and I think they're really true and they ring home as well. Hopefully that makes sense. And again, like I'll upload the first part of this, like the actual importance of this, because the other bits were just kind of updates and me blabbering on. But it's just about let's work smarter, not harder, because working harder drains our energy, something that we don't have enough of. We're all busy. We all work extremely hard in this group. We all have 101 other things going on with our lives. So we just need to work smarter and doing 20% smaller changes for 80% more results rather than doing 80% of the work, trying really hard and then only seeing like 20% of results. So we just need to flip things around a little bit, relax, chill. It's going to be okay. And whatever your goal is and whatever your metric is that you're following, just zoom out and think about the bigger picture. Again, Christmas is coming up. We're like a month away from Christmas. I'm sure everyone has a million and one things to be stressing and worrying about. The last thing we want to worry about is exercise and nutrition and thinking about what that looks like on a daily basis. And if you didn't hit the same weight as you did last week, it's normal and it's cool and it's just part of the process. If there is any worries, then I'll pick you up on it and I can see it. Just trust the process. Because when we are stressed or we do have less sleep or we eat differently, it's going to have an impact. So I think that's the main thing is that don't stress, keep doing what we're doing because I can see a slight drop in some motivation and kind of pushing through and pushing forward, which again is normal at this time of year. Um, but we're doing really well and we just need to keep powering through and just stick to the basics. Again, going back over the 20%, the basics, the simple stuff, see through it to Christmas, and then January, we're on the home run. So, unless there's any other questions, again, like just pop it in the chat and we can kind of go through. Um, but that's kind of most of what I had to say. And again, I'll crop out the important bits, and then put that into a video so y'all can look over. Um, or if you want to unmute and speak, you can do that as well. Then I'll wrap up. Obviously, 24/7 support, just message me if you need anything. And again, like if you want something a little bit more personalized and using some deeper metrics for food and nutrition, let me know, and we can get that sorted for you. Otherwise, I will pause this clip.